Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it. The first words that dragged me out of my digital world were laced with a familiar, venomous sweetness. Alex, get off that stupid game. I didn't even flinch. My eyes were glued to the screen, where my heavily armored paladin was about to bring his warhammer down on a crystal-shelled dragon. My fingers danced across the keyboard, a symphony of clicks and clacks that was music to my ears. In a minute, Sarah, I'm in the middle of a raid. No, not in a minute. Now, her voice was closer this time. Right behind my gaming chair, I felt a cold dread creep up my spine, the kind that had nothing to do with the pixelated monster on my monitor. My sister, Sarah, was 17, 2 years younger than me, but she wielded an authority that could make a drill sergeant nervous. She was a whirlwind of social energy, sports, and straight A's everything I, at 19 and between opportunities, was not. What is it? I grumbled. Finally landing the killing blow, the dragon shattered into a million glittering shards. Victory! It felt hollow. We need to talk, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. She flicked the power switch on the surge protector, and my world went black. The victorious fanfare died, replaced by the hum of the cooling fans. Hey, what the hell, Sarah? I spun around in my chair, my fists clenched. She stood there with her arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. She was wearing a cheerleader uniform from her after-school practice, the short pleated skirt and tight top, a stark contrast to my worn-out sweatpants and faded band t-shirt. Dad's coming home in an hour. He's gonna ask what you've been doing all day. Again. My stomach tightened. Dad's daily check-in was a ritual of disappointment. He'd look at my unkempt room, my glowing monitor, and sigh the sigh of a man whose son was a living, breathing failure to launch. So I shot back, trying to sound tougher than I felt. So, she said, leaning in, her eyes glinting with mischief, I have a proposition, one that will get him off your back for good. She gestured toward the locked door at the end of the hall, Dad's study, and inside, his prized and highly secret invention, the cognitive and physical transference device, a ridiculously fancy name for a machine that let two people swap bodies. A shiver of pure horror ran through me. No, absolutely not. Never again. The last time she'd conned me into this, she'd conveniently forgotten to mention a crucial biological detail. I'd spent 48 agonizing hours trapped in her body, dealing with cramps that felt like a hostile alien was trying to burrow out of my abdomen, and a level of emotional volatility that made me cry at a commercial for car insurance. It was hell. Oh, come on, she wheedled. It's just for the weekend. I have the regional cheer competition, and I sprained my ankle. I can't do the routine, but your body is perfectly fine. You can go in my place. I stared at her, dumbfounded. You want me to be a cheerleader? No, idiot, I'll be the cheerleader. In your body, I just need your healthy ankle. You. Meanwhile, get to stay here and relax. No chores, no lectures from Dad. You just have to be me for a couple of days. What's the big deal? The big deal was everything. The big deal was walking around in a body that wasn't mine, with its strange curves and unfamiliar weight. The big deal was the sheer soul-crushing humiliation of it all. I said no. Sarah. Her smile vanished. It was replaced by a cold, calculating look. Fine, then I guess I'll have to tell Dad about how you sold your old graphics card, the one he bought you for graduation, to buy a rare in-game sword. I'm sure he'd love to know his investment in your future career in graphic design ended up as a bunch of pixels. She had me, the blood drained from my face. That was my last line of defense, the last secret I had. And if you don't agree to swap with me right now, she added, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, I will tell him you do nothing but play games all day, and we'll see how long you get to stay in this house, rent-free. It was a checkmate. I was trapped between my father's disappointment and my sister's Machiavellian scheming. I deflated, the fight going out of me like air from a punctured tire. Fine, I muttered, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. You win. Her grin returned, brighter than ever. I knew you'd see it my way, big brother. 10 minutes later, we were in Dad's study. The machine looked like two high-tech dentist chairs facing each other, connected by a web of cables to a central console. It hummed with a low, latent power. My heart hammered against my ribs as I strapped myself into one of the chairs. Sarah mirrored my actions, her expression one of pure, unadulterated glee. "Ready?" she asked, her hand hovering over the activation button. I just closed my eyes and nodded, bracing myself. The sensation was always the same, and it was always horrible. It started as a tingling at the base of my skull, like 1,000 ants crawling under my skin. The feeling spread, a wave of pins and needles cascading through my entire body, my vision blurred, the room dissolving into a swirl of colors. A disorienting vertigo swept over me, as if the floor had dropped out from under me and I was falling through an endless, electric void. I felt a violent wrenching, a sensation of being pulled apart and stitched back together in the wrong order. A high-pitched squeak escaped my lips, a sound that was definitely not my own. And then, silence. I opened my eyes. The first thing I saw was a curtain of long, brown hair falling over my face. I reached up to push it away, and my hand, delicate, slender, with perfectly manicured nails, felt utterly alien. I looked across at the other chair. Staring back at me was my own face, my own lanky body, my own shaggy blonde hair, but the eyes were Sarah's, sparkling with triumph. "Welcome back to the other side," she said, and my own deep voice came out of her mouth, a surreal and jarring sound. I tried to reply, to say something scathing, but what came out was a light, feminine voice. "I hate you." "I know," she grinned, unstrapping herself with my clumsy, masculine movements. "Now, for part 2. You can't just lounge around in my sweats all weekend. You have to look the part." She led me, or rather, dragged my new, unwilling body to her room. It was a pastel pink nightmare of throw pillows, inspirational quotes on the walls, and a walk-in closet that was bigger than my entire bedroom. She threw open the doors, revealing a terrifying arsenal of female clothing. "Okay," she said, tapping my chin. "Let's start with the basics." She tossed a small, lacy bundle of fabric at me. It was a matching bra and panty set, a delicate lilac color. I stared at it as if it were a live grenade. "Get dressed," she commanded, crossing my arms over my chest. My fingers fumbled with the clasp on the bra, my movements clumsy and inept. The fabric was soft but constricting. The underwire dug into my ribs, and the straps felt like tiny little harnesses. The panties were even worse, a flimsy piece of silk that felt like wearing nothing at all. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and profoundly, deeply ridiculous. Next came a dress. It wasn't just any dress, it was a tight black bodycon monstrosity that looked like it was made for a doll, not a human being. "I can't wear this," I protested, my voice cracking. It's too small." "It'll fit. It's supposed to be tight," she said dismissively, helping me pull it down over my new hips. The fabric clung to every curve, a second skin I never asked for. It rode up with every movement, and I was acutely aware of the shape of my chest, my waist, my thighs. It was a constant, unwelcome reminder of the body I was inhabiting. "Now for the finishing touches," she declared, pulling out a pair of sheer black stockings and a garter belt. The process of putting them on was a new level of humiliation. I felt like I was assembling some strange fetishistic puzzle. The stockings felt unnervingly smooth against my legs, the skin-tight fabric a constant sensory input. The final piece of the torture device was a pair of black high heels. They were at least 4 inches high, with a strap so thin it looked like it would snap if I breathed too hard. "I can't walk in those," I whimpered, staring at them with a mixture of fear and hatred. "You'll learn," Sarah said, her voice my voice devoid of sympathy. She stood back and surveyed her work, a satisfied smile on my face. "Perfect. You look just like me." I looked at my reflection in her full-length mirror, and my stomach churned. The person staring back was Sarah, her long brown hair, her bright green eyes, her petite frame squeezed into a ridiculously provocative outfit. But the expression in those eyes was all mine, lost, terrified, and utterly defeated. This wasn't just a swap, it was an invasion. The next hour was a masterclass in misery. Sarah, parading around in my comfortable, familiar body, decided I needed a crash course in basic feminine motility. "You walk like a trucker," she criticized, watching me stumble across her plush carpet in the killer heels. "Your shoulders are all hunched, shoulders back, chest out. And for God's sake, stop taking such long strides. You're a girl now. Think graceful. Think flowing." I tried to follow her instructions, but my body felt like a puppet with tangled strings. The heels forced my weight onto the balls of my feet, making my calf muscles scream in protest. My hips, which were noticeably wider than I was used to, seemed to have a mind of their own, swaying in a way that felt both unnatural and embarrassing. Each step was a precarious balancing act, a teeter-totter between maintaining my dignity and face-planting into the floor. "This is impossible," I gasped, grabbing onto her bedpost for support. "It's not impossible, it's just new," she said, demonstrating with an effortless, fluid walk that looked completely alien on my own body. "See, it's all in the hips. Let them lead." I felt a surge of rage mixed with despair. "I don't want to let my hips lead. I'm not you, Sarah." She just laughed, a deep rumbling sound that was mine but filled with her mockery. "For the next 48 hours, you are, so you can either adapt, or you can spend the entire weekend falling on your face. Your choice." The lesson continued. She taught me how to sit, with my knees pressed firmly together, a posture that felt constricting and prim. She showed me how to carry a purse, not slung over my shoulder like a messenger bag, but hooked delicately in the crook of my elbow. Everything was a performance, a set of carefully constructed rules I had never known existed. Every sensation was a fresh assault. The long hair was a constant presence, tickling my neck and falling into my eyes. The weight of my chest, while not enormous, was undeniably there, a soft, heavy pressure against the tight fabric of the dress. I could feel the silky material of the stocking slide against my skin with every shift of my legs, the thin strap of the heels digging into my ankles. It was a sensory overload, a constant barrage of information that my brain struggled to process. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, or rather, in hers. My frustration boiled over when I tried to go back to my room, my sanctuary. I reached for the doorknob, only to find it locked. "What's this?" I demanded, turning to face her. "New rule," she said, dangling my own keychain in front of me. "Sarah wouldn't be caught dead in that pigsty, and she definitely wouldn't be playing video games. Your world is off limits for the duration of the swap. You need to fully immerse yourself in the experience." "You can't be serious," I said, my voice rising in panic. "My computer, my stuff, that's my entire life." "Exactly," she said, her smile sharp and cruel. "And for now, your life is in here." She gestured around her immaculate pink room. "You'll sleep in my bed, use my bathroom, and live my life. Dad will be home soon. Try to act natural." With that, she turned and walked away, her confident stride in my body a final, galling insult. The click of the door shutting echoed in the hallway, sealing my fate. I was trapped, not just in her body, but in her world. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of my own locked door, the barrier feeling more symbolic than physical. On the other side was Alex, here, in this hallway, in these ridiculous clothes and this foreign body, was just Sarah, and I had no idea how to be her. The scent of her perfume, something light and floral, seemed to cling to the air, a constant reminder of my new identity. I looked down at my hands again. Turning them over, they were Sarah's hands, but they were my hands now. I had to make them work. I had to survive this. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I wobbled back to her room, the heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor. The girl in the mirror looked panicked, her eyes wide. I took another breath and tried to soften my expression, to force a small smile. It looked like a grimace. This was going to be the longest weekend of my life. Just as I was starting to resign myself to a weekend of confinement in Sarah's room, her phone, which she'd left on the bedside table, buzzed to life. The screen lit up with a name that made my heart do a painful little flip. Ella. Ella was my best friend. Well, she was more than that. She was the person I'd had a hopeless, secret crush on since sophomore year. She was smart, funny, and had a laugh that could make you forget all your problems. We'd spent countless hours gaming together, sharing secrets, and just hanging out. She was the one person who understood my retreat into the digital world, who never judged me for it, and I, of course, had never worked up the courage to tell her how I really felt. I hesitated, then picked up the phone. It was a text. "Ella, hey girl, you up for a last-minute pool day at my place? My parents are out and I'm bored, lol." My mind raced. A torrent of conflicting emotions crashed over me. The first was sheer panic. See Ella like this, as Sarah absolutely not. It was a recipe for disaster. I would mess up, say the wrong thing, walk the wrong way, and she'd know something was off. But then, another thought wormed its way into my brain. A chance to see Ella, a chance to be near her, even if it was under false pretenses. The desire was a sharp, painful ache in my chest. Sarah would go, if I said no. Ella might get suspicious. It was my duty, as the unwilling understudy for my sister, to accept. It was a perfect excuse. My fingers, feeling small and clumsy on the touchscreen, typed back a reply. "Mia, Sarah, OMG, yes, sounds amazing, be there in 20 hours. The moment I hit send, a wave of nausea rolled over me. What had I just done? The panic intensified when I realized what a pool day entailed. A swimsuit. I rifled through Sarah's drawers with a growing sense of dread until I found it a bright teal bikini. The top was 2 tiny triangles of fabric held together by strings, and the bottom was even smaller. The act of putting it on was an exercise in mortification. I stood in front of the mirror in her ensuite bathroom, my reflection a horrifying spectacle of awkwardness. My hands shook as I tied the strings behind my neck and back. The fabric was a thin, clingy layer against my skin, and I was hyper-aware of every inch of this new body that was on display. The curves, the soft skin, the complete and utter lack of anything familiar. It felt profoundly wrong. I looked like a boy playing a very strange and uncomfortable game of dress-up. To cover my shame, I found a thin white maxi dress to wear as a cover-up. It was semi-sheer, doing little to hide the bikini underneath, but it provided a psychological barrier, however flimsy. I slipped on a pair of flat sandals, a merciful reprieve from the heels grabbed Sarah's purse and keys, and headed out, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The walk to Ella's house was only a few blocks, but it felt like a marathon. I was conscious of every glance from passing cars, every person I passed on the sidewalk. Did they know? Could they see the terrified boy hiding behind this girl's face? I kept my head down, my long hair serving as a useful curtain. When I arrived, Ella greeted me at the door with a huge, welcoming smile. She was already in her bikini, a simple red one, with a towel slung over her shoulder. "Sarah, you made it," she said, pulling me into a quick, friendly hug. The casual contact sent a jolt through me. Her skin was warm against mine, and for a second, I forgot to breathe. "Hey, Ella," I managed to squeak out, my voice an octave higher than I intended. "Come on, let's go change out back," she said, leading me through her house to the sliding glass door that opened onto a beautiful backyard with a sparkling blue pool. She led me to the guest bathroom. "You can change in here." As I closed the door, I caught my reflection in the large vanity mirror, and over my shoulder, through the reflection, I could see Ella in the hallway, casually pulling a t-shirt over her head. But what made me freeze was who was standing next to her. It was me, my own body, with Sarah's consciousness inside, had apparently followed me. "Oh, Alex, you're here too," Ella said to my body. Sarah, wearing my favorite hoodie and jeans, gave Ella a charming, lopsided grin. My grin. "Yeah, Sarah said you guys were hanging out. Figured I'd crash the party. Hope that's cool." "Of course," Ella said brightly. I stood there, paralyzed, watching this bizarre scene unfold in the mirror. It was the most profoundly disorienting experience of my life, seeing my own body moving and talking independently, flirting with the girl of my dreams, while I was trapped, hidden away in a bathroom, wearing a bikini. Then, Ella turned her back to the mirror and with a casualness that made my brain short-circuit, she unhooked her red bikini top to swap it for a different one she was holding. For a split second, I saw her bare back, the curve of her spine, and my face erupted in heat. It was a strange, dizzying cocktail of emotions. The boy in me was stunned and flustered. But I was in a girl's body, in a situation where this was supposed to be normal, casual. The conflict was a dizzying, silent scream in my head. I quickly turned away from the mirror, my heart hammering. I slipped off the cover-up, my skin feeling cold and exposed. This was a terrible, terrible idea. I was in way over my head. I took a deep breath, pasted a hopefully convincing smile on my face, and stepped out of the bathroom. Sarah, in my body, was already lounging on a pool chair, looking infuriatingly at home. Ella was spreading sunscreen on her arms, her back to me. "Ready?" she asked, turning around with that radiant smile. I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak. I walked awkwardly to the edge of the pool, feeling the sun on my bare shoulders. Every part of me wanted to wrap my arms around myself, to hide. But I couldn't. I had to be Sarah, and Sarah was confident. I slipped into the water, and the coolness was an immediate, shocking relief. It enveloped me, a welcome sensory buffer against the world. The water lapped against my skin, and I felt the weight of my long hair as it fanned out around me, a silken curtain in the blue. For a moment, the sheer novelty of the sensation overrode my anxiety. It was not unpleasant. The buoyancy of the water made the alien weight of my body feel different, lighter, more manageable. "The water's perfect," Ella exclaimed, diving in with a graceful splash. She came up next to me, shaking water from her hair like a happy puppy. "Isn't this great? So much better than sitting inside." "Yeah," I managed, my voice sounding a little more natural this time. "It's amazing." Sarah, or rather, my body, stayed on the lounger, scrolling through my phone. "You girls have fun," she called it out in my voice. "I'm gonna work on my tan." It was a lazy, masculine gesture that felt both completely normal and utterly wrong coming from her. Ella and I swam around for a while, making small talk. I did my best to channel my sister, talking about school, friends I didn't know, and TV shows I'd never seen. I was a terrible actor, but Ella didn't seem to notice. She was just happy to have a friend to talk to. At some point, she swam over to the edge of the pool where her phone was resting. "Ooh, selfie time," she announced. Before I could protest, she had her arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. My bare skin touched hers, and an electric current shot through me. She held the phone up, and I saw our faces together on the screen. Ella, smiling and carefree, and me, in Sarah's body, with a wide-eyed deer-in-the-headlights expression. "Smile," she chirped. I forced my lips into something resembling a smile. Click. "Cute," she said, looking at the picture. "You look really pretty today, Sarah." My cheeks flushed, a compliment, directed at me, but not for me. It was a dizzying, confusing feeling. "Thanks," I mumbled, looking away. She didn't seem to notice my awkwardness. She just continued to chat, her natural ebullience filling the silence I created. We were floating in the shallow end, the water up to our chests, when she started talking about a difficult class she was taking. As she spoke, she gestured with her hands, and at one point, her hand brushed against mine under the water. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers casually intertwined with mine. My entire nervous system went into overdrive. I was holding hands with Ella. It was a fantasy I had replayed in my head 1,000 times. But it was never like this. It was supposed to be me, Alex, holding her hand, not me as Sarah. The warmth of her grip was real, the connection undeniable, and to my horror, a part of me didn't care about the circumstances. It just felt good. It felt incredible to be this close to her, to have this simple, intimate connection. I was living my dream, but I was wearing a costume. A thought, treacherous and seductive, slithered into my mind. If I stay like this, as Sarah, maybe I can always be this close to her. The idea was horrifying. It was a betrayal of myself, of Ella, of everything, but it was also tempting. As Alex, I was a clumsy, insecure gamer who could barely speak to her without stammering. As Sarah, I was her pretty, confident best friend. People listened to Sarah, people liked Sarah. Ella was holding Sarah's hand. I felt a wave of guilt so strong it was almost nauseating. Yet I didn't pull my hand away. I just floated there, suspended in the cool water, holding my crush's hand while trapped in my sister's body. completely and utterly lost in a sea of confusion. The line between Alex and Sarah, between fantasy and reality, was starting to dissolve. The weekend became a blur of forced femininity. The pool day was just the beginning. It turned out Sarah had a packed social schedule, and I, as her stand-in, was contractually obligated to attend every event. On Saturday afternoon, I was dragged on a shopping trip to the mall with two of Sarah's friends, Jessica and Chloe. They were a whirlwind of high-pitched laughter and rapid-fire gossip about people I'd never met. I mostly smiled and nodded, praying they wouldn't ask me any direct questions. The mall was a special kind of hell. It was a sensory assault of bright lights, loud music, and competing perfumes. We spent what felt like an eternity in a store called Forever 21, which seemed to be filled with nothing but crop tops and clothes made of impossibly thin fabric. "Ooh, Sarah, you have to try this on," Chloe squealed, holding up a floral print sundress. Before I could object, I was hustled into a tiny dressing room with a handful of outfits. The experience of trying on clothes in a public place was a new form of torment. The flimsy curtain offered little privacy, and I was acutely aware of the other girls chattering just outside. I tried on the sundress first. The fabric was light and airy, and it swirled around my knees when I turned. It felt freeing, in a strange way so different from the constricting jeans I was used to. Looking in the mirror, I saw a girl who looked nice, pleasant. The dress softened Sarah's features, making me look younger and more innocent. Next was a pair of high-waisted denim shorts and a tight-ribbed tank top. This outfit made me deeply uncomfortable. It exposed my midriff and hugged my hips in a way that felt brazen. I felt like I was on display. Every curve and line of this borrowed body showcased for the world to see. It was an armor of confidence I didn't possess. "How's it going in there?" Jessica called out. It's good," I stammered, my voice feeling small. I spent the rest of the trip as a silent mannequin, letting them pick out clothes for me. They bought a pair of trendy white sneakers, a soft cashmere sweater, and a lacy bralette that I knew I would never, ever wear by choice. Each item was another piece of a puzzle I didn't know how to solve, another layer of Sarah's identity being plastered over my own. The physical sensations were relentless. I learned that the straps of a cute shoulder bag will inevitably slide off your shoulder every 30 seconds. I learned that women's jeans have laughably small pockets that can't even hold a phone. I learned that walking through a crowded space requires a kind of spatial awareness I'd never had to develop before, navigating the world with a body that took up space in a completely different way. With each passing hour, the initial revulsion and panic began to subside, replaced by a strange, unsettling sense of acclimation. My walk in flat shoes was becoming less of a clumsy stomp and more of a natural gait. I started to automatically push my hair out of my face without thinking about it. I even caught myself laughing at one of Chloe's jokes, the sound light and feminine, and for a split second, it didn't feel forced. This slow erosion of my own identity was terrifying. I'd find myself looking in a mirror and, for a brief moment, not feeling the usual jolt of shock. The reflection was just a girl, and sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of something interesting in her expression, a flicker of curiosity. I started to wonder what people saw when they looked at me. Did they see the shy, awkward boy I was inside? Or did they just see Sarah, popular and put together? The most surreal part was seeing my own body periodically throughout the weekend. Sarah was having the time of her life. She used my physical strength to help our dad with some yard work. Earning his praise, she invited a few of my gaming friends over, charming them with a confidence and wit I could never muster. She was living a better version of my life, in my own skin, while I was completely adrift in hers. One evening, I was sitting in Sarah's room trying to figure out how her ridiculously complex skincare routine worked when she sauntered in, wearing my favorite sweats and munching on a bag of chips. "Having fun?" she asked, a smirk on my face. "It's just peachy," I said flatly, dabbing a strange-smelling serum onto my cheeks. "You're getting better at it," she observed, leaning against the doorframe. "You almost sound like me now." The comment hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't trying to get better, I was just trying to survive. But maybe she was right. Maybe in the process of faking it, I was starting to lose track of where the performance ended and I began. I was lost in translation. The original message, Alex becoming fainter and fainter with each passing moment. I was trapped in a complex, burgeoning relationship with Ella, who only knew me as her friend Sarah, and I could feel the foundations of my own self slowly, terrifyingly, starting to crumble. The illusion of being Sarah became dangerously comfortable as the weekend wore on. On Sunday evening, Ella invited me over to her place to study for a history exam we supposedly had on Monday. I knew nothing about the subject, but I couldn't refuse. The magnetic pull of being near her was too strong. We sat on her bedroom floor, textbooks and notes spread out around us for the first hour. I managed to bluff my way through, pretending to read the chapter while Ella did most of the talking, summarizing the key points. I just nodded and tried to look studious. But then she closed her textbook with a sigh and flopped back onto her bed. I can't focus on this anymore. My brain is fried. Yeah, mine too, I said, seizing the opportunity to stop pretending. She propped herself up on her elbows, a thoughtful expression on her face. Can I ask you something, Sarah? And you have to be totally honest. My stomach did a nervous flip. Of course. It's about your brother, she began, and my entire world tilted on its axis. What's he really like? I blinked, completely caught off guard. What do you mean you know Alex? I know, she said, fidgeting with a loose thread on her comforter, but I feel like I only know the surface-level Alex, the quiet, funny guy who's amazing at video games. But sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I feel like there's more to him, but he never lets anyone in. My heart was beating so hard I was sure she could hear it. I was about to get a direct look into how she saw me, unfiltered. It was both a dream come true and my worst nightmare. He's complicated, I said carefully, choosing my words. It was the most honest thing I'd said all weekend. I guess, she mused, it's just a while back. I think maybe I had a little crush on him. The words hit me like a physical blow. Air left my lungs in a silent whoosh. She had a crush on me. On me? Alex. A giddy, euphoric joy surged through me. So powerful it almost made me laugh out loud. It was everything I had ever wanted to hear. But the joy was immediately extinguished by the cold, hard reality of my situation. I was sitting here in her room, in my sister's body, wearing a pair of Sarah's cute pajama shorts and a soft t-shirt. I couldn't claim this victory. This confession wasn't for me. Not really. It was for a ghost. Oh, really? I asked, my voice a strained whisper. Yes, she said, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. It was stupid. I just always got the feeling he wasn't interested. He's always so distant. You know, like he's in his own world, so I just let it go. I'm not distant. I wanted to scream. I'm just scared. I'm scared of saying the wrong thing, of messing everything up, of you realizing I'm not as cool or as interesting as you think. The truth was right there, a burning coal on the tip of my tongue. I could tell her. I could end this charade right now. I could say, Ella, it's me. I'm Alex. I'm in here. I opened my mouth. The words were there, fighting to get out. My whole body tensed, preparing for the monumental, world-altering confession. This was it. This was the moment. But then I looked at her face. I saw the open, trusting expression in her eyes. She was confiding in her best friend, Sarah. She was sharing a vulnerable secret because she felt safe. If I told her the truth, I wouldn't just be revealing a bizarre secret about a body-swapping machine. I would be revealing that her safe space was a lie, that her best friend was a fraud, that I had been deceiving her, listening to her secrets, and sharing intimate moments with her under the most grotesque of false pretenses. The potential damage was catastrophic. I would lose her, not just as a potential girlfriend, but as a friend. The trust between us would be shattered, possibly forever. The risk was too great. I closed my mouth, the unspoken words dissolving into a bitter taste in my throat. He's just shy, I said instead, the words feeling like a betrayal. He likes you, Ella, a lot. He just doesn't know how to show it. She looked at me, her eyes hopeful. You really think so? I know so, I said, my heart breaking with every syllable. I was giving her the encouragement I had never been brave enough to give her myself, all while hiding behind a mask. I was a coward, puppeteering a conversation that should have been mine. The confession remained locked away, a prisoner in a body that wasn't my own, and the weight of it was crushing me. When I returned home late Sunday night, the house was quiet. I was emotionally and physically exhausted. The performance was draining, and the conversation with Ella had left me feeling hollowed out, a tangle of joy and despair. All I wanted was for this nightmare to be over. I wanted my own bed, my own clothes, my own body. I found Sarah in the kitchen, raiding the fridge in my body. She was wearing my boxer shorts and an old t-shirt, looking comfortably at home. There you are, she said, my voice muffled by a mouthful of leftover pizza. How was study night? Fine, I mumbled. Avoiding her gaze, I walked over to the calendar on the wall. The weekend was circled in red. Tomorrow was Monday. The swap was supposed to end in the morning. Freedom was only a few hours away. About that, she started, and my blood ran cold. I turned to look at her, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. She had that calculating look in her eyes again. I was thinking, this has been working out pretty well, hasn't it? What are you talking about? I asked, my voice sharp. Well, Dad's been off my case about my sprained ankle, and he's been thrilled with how responsible you've been, she said, gesturing to my body. And you seem to be handling my social life just fine. So, I was thinking we should extend it. I stared at her, uncomprehending. Extend it for how long? She took another bite of pizza, chewing thoughtfully before delivering the final, devastating blow. I don't know, a few weeks, maybe a month. A roar of pure, unadulterated fury erupted from my throat, a sound so high-pitched and shrill it barely sounded human. A month? Are you insane? No, absolutely not. We had a deal, Sarah. Deals change, she said calmly, completely unfazed by my outburst. Look, this is better for both of us. You're out of your room. You're actually talking to people. And I get to take a break from all the pressure. It's a win-win. A win-win for you, I shrieked, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. I hate this. I hate being you. I want my life back. My protest felt strangely weak, even to my own ears. A part of my brain, a quiet, treacherous part, was whispering that she was right. I had been out of my room. I had been talking to people. I had held Ella's hand. The thought of going back to being invisible. Awkward Alex, who couldn't even talk to the girl he liked. Was that really what I wanted? The prospect, which just 2 days ago had been my only desire, now filled me with a different kind of dread. We'll see, was all she said, before turning and heading upstairs to her room, leaving me standing alone in the silent kitchen. I stumbled back to her room, my mind reeling. A month living like this for a month, it was an impossible, unbearable thought. I sank down onto the edge of her perfectly made bed, my body trembling. I felt utterly powerless, a pawn in my sister's game. I caught my reflection in the vanity mirror across the room. The girl staring back looked pale and distraught, her green eyes wide with a mixture of terror and confusion. Her long brown hair was slightly messy from the day, and she was wearing a soft pink t-shirt that felt impossibly delicate against my skin. Slowly, as if in a trance, I reached up and ran my fingers through the long, silky strands of hair. It felt familiar now, not mine, but not entirely alien either. I watched the girl in the mirror mimic the motion, her expression unreadable. Who was that person? The lines had become so blurred. I had spent the entire weekend thinking and feeling things I'd never experienced before. I had felt the constraining pressure of a tight dress, the liberating swirl of a skirt, the delicate touch of a friend's hand. I had navigated conversations and social situations that Alex would have run from. I had heard the girl of my dreams confess she had feelings for me, and I had been forced to respond as someone else. I leaned closer to the mirror, my breath fogging the glass. I stared into her own eyes, searching for a trace of the boy I used to be. I whispered the question to the reflection, the sound barely audible in the quiet room. Am I Sarah, or am I Alex? The girl in the mirror didn't have an answer. She just looked back at me, her expression a perfect mirror of my own turmoil. And another, even more terrifying question followed, unbidden. If I tell Ella the truth, who will she choose? Would she choose the shy, insecure boy she thought she knew? Or would she choose the person I had become in this skin, the person who was her friend, the person she confided in, the person she held hands with? The thought was a chilling, impossible paradox. I was trapped, not just by my sister, not just in this body, but by the very person I was becoming. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to escape.